Which incident makes you sick to your stomach? I woke up from an evening nap to the sounds of screaming. At first I thought it was my roommates playing video game, but soon realized it was coming from my open window. It was just one person screaming over and over again. Turns out our next-door neighbor killed herself, and it was her cousin screaming after finding her body. Those gut-wrenching screams still ring in my ears when I think about that night. A young woman in my neighborhood was brutally murdered by her boyfriend. It was true crime level bad. He strangled her and stabbed her repeatedly, dragging her all around the house, and then violated her while she was dying. Her brothers found her body. The murderer's best alibi was that he was dealing cocaine at the time. One of my very close friends was a recovering addict, fent, heroin, meth, and the night she relapsed due in part to her unbearable tooth pain, she was with some fucked up people who thought she overdosed and died. Fearing they would be to blame for her death, they locked the door on the way out of her RV and set it on fire. By the time anyone realized it was on fire, it was too late. The coroner said she, in fact, was burned alive due to the smoke that was in her lungs. Cambodian massacre. There are a lot of pictures with thousands of skulls, and at that time of Khmer Rouge their life expectancy was below 20 years. When I was in college, a student went missing. Her remains were found not too long after. She had an argument with her boyfriend and broke up with him. He got angry at her, murdered her, and tried to get rid of the evidence by chopping her up and burning her on his barbecue grill. Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka. One of their victims was locked out of her house as punishment because she missed curfew. They picked her up on her own doorstep. Junko Furuta loudly crying face. In a nearby village 2 hours, a brother beat her little sister to death thinking she had sex with someone, as the brother saw a red stain on her skirt which was in fact her first period blood. This shows how much sex ed is required for everyone. Damien Bendall. Evil killer Damien Bendall will spend the rest of his life in prison after murdering his pregnant partner and 3 children in a horrific and brutal attack. Bendall, 32, who had previously admitted manslaughter, pleaded guilty to murdering 35-year-old Terry Harris, her 11-year-old daughter Lacey Bennett, her son John Bennett, 13, and Lacey's friend Connie Gent, 11, with a claw hammer at the home he shared with Ms. Harris. He also admitted raping Lacey as she lay dying from the head wounds he had inflicted with the hammer at the house in Killamarsh, near Sheffield, in 2021. Lost Prophets guy. Ian Watkins. The court documents are gruesome. That man is the soggiest of socks. Murder of James Bulger. Everything about the incident itself and the entire aftermath, media behavior, etc. Jimmy Savile, loads of allegations but nothing was done. He literally got away with abusing hundreds if not thousands of vulnerable people. A girl I knew got stabbed to death in broad daylight by a drifter. Nutty Putty Cave. 44 Days of Hell. The murder of Junko Furuta. Joseph Fritzl and what he did to his daughter. Japanese 731 unit. Was hit by a car and my shin snapped in half. I remember looking down and seeing my leg in an L shape. Jeffrey Epstein and his bitch girlfriend and Creepy Island. The case of Adrian Jones. I can't imagine what that boy went through and how much he suffered during his last days of life. How confused his parents were supposed to love him. CPS failed him and resulted in him being fed to pigs. Rest in peace to that poor baby. The Thai cave football team incident chills me to the fucking bone. So stoked they all made it out. There was a woman who was in a coma for years who ended up giving birth from being raped by one of her carers. Such a sad story. My posthumous father-in-law, I guess. Raped my wife a lot, then killed himself before sentencing. He's still held in high regard among his community. My wife's little brothers blame her. Jehovah's Witness is a fucking cult. Hisachi Ouchie. Wendigoon made a really good video on him. The BP oil spill made me lose faith in humanity. 11 people died, thousands developed life-threatening diseases while cleaning up their mess. To this day the earth is still feeling that spill. The court dropped 48 felonies and 11 manslaughters against the people responsible and gave them a misdemeanor each because they brought out their checkbook. Agent Orange. That guy who got stuck upside down in a cliff and died there. Fucking savage story. Porn using trafficked women and men. Again. I could wipe out the scum who perpetrate this without remorse. The Hillsborough disaster. Hazing rumors at college. Forcing people to eat drink stupid shit is one thing, but making them sleep with strangers to join your sorority fraternity is beyond fucked up. I read a book about Jonestown. The very last part just made me cry. How could people truly willingly let their children die in front of them? Horrific. The rape of Nanjing by Imperial Japan. Murder of baby Brianna. Cat in the blender. Anything that involves animal cruelty or children makes me sick. The Holocaust. I drive trains. A 14-year-old girl sat on the tracks in front of me and committed suicide. I was going about 50 miles per hour when I saw it. Threw the emergency brakes but still hit her going 46-ish. She didn't bounce off but ended up getting ground up underneath. There were bits and pieces along the tracks for about a mile. Fucking haunts me day and night. I think the worst thing I've ever heard about involves a girl called Junko Furuta. Just search up 40 Days of Hell on Google and you'll see what I'm talking about. I won't go in depth BC. I don't know the rules about what you're allowed to say on this subreddit. But Junko was kidnapped and tortured in some of the most horrific ways humanly possible for 40 days. I remember reading an article a few years ago about a poor immigrant that drowned while people were looking and laughing in Venice. I would say the Toolbox Killers is probably on my top 10, but somewhere in the top 3 would be Funky Town Video. The Chris Watts case, I just think of him smothering his own baby girls. As a mother of 2 girls, it just sickens me physically to think about. Hisashi Ouchie, victim of severe radiation poisoning and being kept alive too long. Guy shoots himself in the face with a shotgun. People make it a meme. Like, what in the fuck were they thinking when they made it a meme? What the Imperial Japanese Army did during World War II, and what the Japanese government refused to do after the World War II. And the fact that not many people in the Western world know what comfort women are. The toy box murder. Jurors had to leave the room to vomit. Tiananmen Square. Wasn't something I was taught about in school and read about the other day. Truly sickening, but they stood up for themselves until the end. Saw a video years ago. It was filmed right outside the courtroom, and it was of this boy, probably about 6 years old, whose loving foster family had to give him back to his meth head mother, who had pimped him out for drugs. He was crying and asking why, and mommy hurt him, etc. I think it's the saddest thing I've ever seen. Any tragedy including infants and small children. I can take anything else, but that is my breaking point. Most of human history. The Casey Anthony verdict. The Nutty Putty Cave incident. As someone who is claustrophobic, the sheer thought of what happened makes my palms sweat. Wouldn't call it an incident purse, but the Highland clearances. Fidel Lopez. What he did to his girlfriend is truly disgusting and genuinely made me feel ill when I first heard it. Don't think anything else has come close to the same visceral reaction. I know this one gets brought up a lot, but the Uvalde shooting. The fact that the officers didn't go in the school where kids were being murdered because it wasn't safe just makes